Hey guys, Erin here with Southern Girl Exotics. Welcome back to my channel. So this is going to be a little fun video I think I'm going to enjoy making, but it's a question that I see all the time, either asked on forums or people will direct message me and ask how I go about doing this. And I think it's really important, and this is handling. So I wanted to make a video on how to handle your gargoyle gecko or your crested gecko. I'm going to show both. I don't know if I can make this into a full 15 or 20 minute video, but I do have some topics I want to touch on, like how to prepare, how to acknowledge what handling really means for reptiles versus what it means for us. And then I'm going to show you a few techniques that I use on different types of individuals. I make a point, if you have noticed, to always do my videos with an animal in my hand. And a lot of times it's a gargoyle gecko. And there's a reason for that. Not just because I love gargoyle geckos, but because there's a lot of times that we look at certain animals and we think they are scary just by some unwarranted crap we have going on here. But gargoyle geckos do look a little more mischievous. They do look a little more sinister, I think. So it's a very unwarranted fear. So I really like to handle them a lot in my videos so that people can see that these are very handleable geckos. They're very, very sweet natured and easy to handle. But I also understand that when you have a species that you're unfamiliar with, especially if you're new to reptile keeping in general, that can be scary, and it absolutely can ruin your experience with any species that you're trying to get into. But I know what it feels like to have this $1,000 animal that I can't hold, I can't really interact with, and it's kind of bummed me out. Hence why I had leechies for so long before I decided to actually breed them or get more, because I wasn't sure, one, if I would have some that I would have positive interaction with, or two, if I could ever get over my fear. And I'm not completely over my fear, but I have put myself in positions to start handling them over the last 2 years and get more familiar and comfortable with it, which ultimately that is going to be the biggest factor in this whole thing, how confident and comfortable you are. So I'm going to go over some things in this video. I hope you guys find it helpful. Definitely give it a thumbs up if you like the video. If you are new here, please subscribe. And yeah, I'll see you guys at the end of the video. All right, so first let's get a clear understanding of how reptiles perceive handling and how we perceive it. Majority of the time we come into this relationship between you and said reptile assuming that it's just going to be this positive interaction and they're going to want us as companions and they're going to enjoy us handling them and interacting with them. And for most reptiles, I can't speak on all of them. I don't work with snakes. I don't work with several types of big lizards out there. But I do have quite a bit of knowledge, I would say, on most gecko species. I own a ton of different species when it comes to geckos. And I can confidently say that for them, they don't want our companionship. They don't like handling. The majority of them will tolerate it. So a lot of them can be amazing at tolerating handling. But the majority of reptiles don't want interaction with us. It's an instinctual fight or flight thing. A lot of the gecko species that we have out there available are more prey animals out in the wild. So they absolutely instinctually see us as a threat and then picking them up. And then a lot of times people want to like pet them. It can be a very stressful situation for them. It becomes even more stress when we are scared of it and try to encourage this interaction between reptile and ourselves. They don't want to be our friend. They don't want to snuggle with us. They don't need us to handle them. They're not missing anything in their enrichment and in their setup if we don't handle them. That's another thing I see all the time. People have a ton of this unwarranted guilt of like, I need to rehome my reptile because I can't handle it. I don't have time to interact with it. I tell people all the time, you probably have the happiest reptile out there because they don't want it. You don't owe your gecko any type of interaction on that scale. They are perfectly happy and fine if you leave them in their enclosure, feed them well, make sure they have enriching things to explore. they are perfectly happy in that situation. Now, the best way to go into handling is first and foremost to make sure that you're in a controlled area. By controlled, I mean is you don't want to be handling your gecko in an area that has a lot of crevices that it can get under or escape from you. These guys are fast if they jump and run real quick. Luckily, there's some ways we can prevent that. But you definitely, if you can, bathrooms are great, kitchen floors are great, as long as there's nothing they can squeeze behind or get under. And you can always do that by putting towels. If there's like a fridge or something, you can put like a towel down, having some type of broom, step ladder. I use pool noodles just in case they get up on the wall. You can kind of use the broom or the pool noodle to kind of coax them onto it from the wall or the ceiling. But until you can be able to read the animal's body language and know if it's going to jump, if it's going to run, then you're most likely going to have some jumpers and runners. And that can get kind of scary if you've never handled them before, if you're afraid of them biting, if you're afraid of them escaping. All that anxiety can make the session even worse, because then you're afraid to pick it up, you're afraid you're going to chase it. It just makes the entire vibe not feel very good for both you and gecko. So have a broom or a pool noodle handy. You can even have a critter keeper or a deli cup on hand. So if you want to capture it that way, you can capture it that way. Step ladders are always good, or a step stool so you can reach up high and get it if it gets away, and close off any type of small crevices in the area that they can get under. Now, thirdly, I just want to touch on, before we move into me showing you guys a couple different ways to pick up and handle your geckos, I do want you to understand that some animals never come around to handling. You can have a species like crested geckos, gargoyle geckos, that are known generally to be awesome with handling, but they're all individuals. You may have one that is incredibly anxious and spastic. You may have one that is bitey. That just comes with the territory, and you have to be okay with the fact that this one, whichever one it might be that you have, may just be one that no matter how many times you handle it, it's not going to come around to handling. And that's okay, because if you become more confident with handling and you become more familiar with what to expect out of that specific animal, handling is still possible. You can do it a limited amount of time so that you're not stressing the animal out, but at the same time, you're still getting your fix of, I want to interact. That's why I have this animal. So I'm going to take it out occasionally and handle it. For the less stress causing possibility, it's best to keep it to a minimum. 10 minutes is a good handling sesh, 20 at most. Again, the more confident you get with handling and the more confident you get with understanding that individual animal's behaviors and responses, the more you'll be able to know if he or she is getting more stressed out. Is it time to put them up? Do I have a few more minutes I can get in with them? So the more you do it, the more comfortable you will get. But ultimately, we'll just stick with Gargs and Cresteds because that's what I'm mainly pertaining to in this video. Most Gargs and Crested geckos will appreciate a short handling session. All right, guys, so first question is going to be, how do we get our gargoyle gecko or crested gecko into a confined, safe space to handle them if we're too afraid to stick our hand in there and get them? That's a wonderful question. First and foremost, you need to, as catchy and cliche as it is, understand that anything with a mouth is going to bite you. That is typically people's fear. They're going to get bit. Gargoyle geckos and crested geckos generally are amazing at not biting and being handled. These animals, if they do bite, it is so minor, it's not even worth stressing out about. But I do understand the fear. Best case scenario, you get bit, and that way you can go ahead and get it over with and understand that it's not that big of a deal. But I know how that anxious anticipation that it might happen until it actually happens can really make you uncomfortable and afraid. But Get that in your head. It's going to happen. If it does happen, great. You can get over it. But anything with a mouth can bite you. So move on past that and accept that that could happen if you're going to handle. All right, so first question, how can we handle these animals if we're too afraid of them to even put our hands in here? First and foremost, being confident is going to change your experience with handling 1,000%. If you're reaching in here to get your animal and you're constantly jerking back every time it moves, you're scaring it. If you are getting close to it, it can feel you coming. Even if you think it's sleeping, it knows you're coming in there. I also think that we put off that energy, that real anxious energy that they can kind of vibe with. So it is super important that you try to be as confident as you can. Make up your mind, we're going to handle today. I'm going in, I'm doing it. That is going to make all the difference in the world. And you will notice that difference once you get farther in your handling sessions, in your journey with the whole idea of it. If you are absolutely scared past your wits of what to do, you can always use gloves. I will never, ever, 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 ever on this channel or anywhere else belittle or fault somebody for taking safety measures. If you are afraid, there is nothing wrong with taking proper safety precautions that make you feel better, and it's going to overall make your animal feel more comfortable because you're more confident. Now, these are kind of big gloves. These are not particularly what I would probably use on a smaller gecko because they're pretty thick. But whatever you have around the house until you get comfortable, and as long as you can grip your gecko and not hurt them wearing them, then I say go for it. I even like, if I'm really scared of an animal and I have to glove up, these are for my leechies because they bite pretty good. But I even like to use latex gloves. Latex gloves give you a false sense of security. You feel like your hands are secured, they're not going to get hurt, but at the same time, they very well can, but you still have that sense of security, and it changes your confidence going in, which is super, super important. All right, so we've got this little male right here, and he is awake. He knows I'm here. I've been talking for a while. You see he's kind of moving. Typically that might scare somebody. You can kind of ease your fingers under him and undo his claws like that. And just take him out slow. If you have one, he's actually being really good for one that I just woke up. If you have one that just has to keep moving, you can treadmill them. Treadmilling geckos that are just very anxious, you just got them out, is a great practice to kind of wear them down. We see a lot when we watch these wild geographic type videos where we see snakes and things like that being wrangled, alligators. We see a lot of times that they kind of wear them down and then they start slowing down. Well, geckos are the same way. You may spook one, you may catch one on guard that does not want to be handled. And typically, if you just treadmill them, one hand in front of the other, you can start seeing they will just slow down and eventually just rest. Now, there is kind of like an art to this. I teach the kids at shows this all the time, but if you start moving your hand, they start moving. So sometimes you can encourage them to keep going on accident when you're just trying to get them to chill out. But the minute you start moving your hand, they're going to start going. Even if it's just slightly on the back like that, you're going to keep them moving, and that can also make it very uncomfortable and scary for you when you're first trying out the treadmill method, because it feels like they never slow down, they never stop walking. But typically they're responding to your touch. And when you do it, you just want to place your hand flat in front of them. You can even kind of scoot it under them like that, just like that. Now, a lot of people will tell you not to go from up top. And as you can see, he moved. It does kind of make them a little uncomfortable. I like to not grab them, but just loosen them. And then they're okay. Once you get them on them fingers, you're okay. Now, getting them off the glass is a lot easier, and I'll show you how I do it. I like my flat hand, one over here, and I try, just to pop them on my hand like that. It's a lot easier. And if you haven't noticed, as you can see, I always go into treadmill hands. Just real quick, let's take a little look. See all them little bites right there? See all them little white dots on her back? That means the male's been trying to breed with her. All those little tiny white dots that look like dry skin. Those are little bits of scarring from the male biting her and trying to breed with her. That's a great sign. All right, so we've got this other female right here. You can kind of coax her in the back like that to go on your hand in front of her. That's always an easy stance that she's in to kind of get them to go on your hand. If they are standing like that, their heads are up, you can easily put that hand in front of them and just touch their butt. If you just touch their butt or their back, they'll start walking on your hands. Just like that. I know I got you girls all riled up. I'm sorry. And then, as usual, right into the treadmill method. Always keep that extra hand right in front of them, so if they decide to run or decide to walk, they've got somewhere to go and they're not just jumping out into the crazy world like she just tried to do, had my hand not been there. And let's take a look. Y'all see the little bites right there on her neck too? See all that little white, what looks like ashy skin on the red? Those are breeding bites. And that's right in the right place too. We want to see them on the neck and on the head. How exciting! All right, let's come over here and let's do a couple crested geckos. Now, crested geckos, in my opinion, are tons more flighty. So even though you may not have the fear of them biting you when you go to handle them, they absolutely love to run, a lot of them. And it can be like a ping pong ball in the cage. So that can be very stressful. People are afraid they're going to run out. They're going to just disappear. They're just going crazy. So it makes you anxious. So let's do a couple crested geckos. I'm sure I have some crazy ones. All right, let's take a little look at the difference with handling crested geckos. There's my little female right there. I've moved the leaves so she knows I'm coming in, has nothing to worry about. Try to get under her to get that. And voila. Now, crested geckos are much more runners than gargoyle geckos. So it is pretty helpful to have that treadmill hand ready and right in front of them. But as you can see, typically she wakes up, she knows I'm no threat, and she calms down. All right, let's try it with another one. Let's see here. Go ahead and take these foods out of here. Open that. I don't even know where this one is. Over here somewhere. Up here somewhere. There you are. See them right there in the corner. Well, these guys you can kind of chase on your hand. Just tap them on the butt. Tap them on the hand, and then get your treadmill hands ready. As soon as you can, get that treadmill hand ready. These guys also aren't that great for petting. Even after they calm down, typically if you start trying to pet them, they're going to start moving. Gargoyle geckos, as you saw, they just don't care. Once they become adults, they're very confident. Crested geckos, though, they're not much for the petting. They're much more prey animals than gargoyle geckos, and they live with that mindset. All right, let's do one more here. This is another crested gecko. I don't know if you can see him right there. So just let him know by moving the trees that I'm in here. Going to try to get my hands underneath him like that, and then I can pull him out. I don't like to squeeze them. I don't ever want to grab them like that and pull them up if I don't have to. Some of them can be strong and I may have to, but I prefer to just ease my nails and whatnot under them and then have them kind of plop on my hand. He's actually being pretty good. Yep, there he goes. Usually a little runner for me. All right, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. I certainly hope maybe you can use some of the techniques I use to really build up your confidence and have a more positive handling session with your animals. Either way, just go for it. If it's something you absolutely want to embrace and start doing and working on with your animal, stick with it. Keep with it. Make sure that you are going in confident, you understand what to expect, and I promise you it'll get easier over time, even if your animal never fully comes around or tolerates it very well. You will be more comfortable doing it. So definitely give it a thumbs up. Oh, and in the comments, let me know, do you have an animal that you can't handle like I do with my leechies, some of them? Or are you able to handle yours? Or do you even know what it's like to be afraid of handling a species? Maybe some of y'all out there have never had that fear, but I think for a lot of us, we've been there when we first got into reptiles. If you are new here, please subscribe, and thank you for supporting the channel. Hope you guys have an amazing week, and I will see you guys next week.